Well, hey there, guys. I'm Max the Beast of ZeldaEngine.net, and I cut myself shaving. And I want to talk to you about the transportation overworlds in the Zelda series. That's my personal term. I don't know if it's common or if I coined it or what. It's just what I use for the overworlds where you have to get across like with a vehicle, and it's not the normal gameplay, like the surface gameplay where you run on the ground. And this first appeared in the Zelda series for the most part, anyway, in the Wind Waker. Although I think it takes some elements out of the previous games. And it's appeared in a lot of games since then, and that's kind of what I want to talk about, this prevalence of it. I think I've made no secret of the fact that I didn't really like the overworld in the Wind Waker, and I thought it was improved on in some of the following games. But I think that I still have a bigger problem with the concept overall and how it's executed in Zelda, though I don't think it's a bad concept in itself. And just let me get into it as the video goes on. The first thing I want to talk about here is the fact that how many games have used it, because after the Wind Waker, let's just say starting with the Wind Waker, the first game in the series to really use it, you had games like Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks and Skyward Sword to all use it as well. Now, there were other Zelda games that came out that did not, but there were only really three, that at least, unless I'm forgetting something, and I don't think I am, which is Four Swords Adventures, which was really a side game in a very big way. It's not really a major Zelda game. The Minish Cap, which, despite being very similar to the other Zelda games, is also a side game, and Twilight Princess, which is the only major release of all of them. And so that's two major games and two side games to use the transportation overall. So there's definitely no denying that there's a serious prevalence of it. And I guess I really don't get it. I mean, even if you don't mind it, do you really think that it fits Zelda in the long haul? My opinion is that it conflicts with exploration, even in the Wind Waker, because it's actually very similar to the hallway problem I have with Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time's overworld is mostly like a big empty hub with a bunch of branching hallways, and this is a problem I've had with most of the 3D games, and in my opinion is a lot of the handheld and 2D games really did better with this. The areas didn't feel like hallways. And I think that while the Wind Waker does have that very open overworld, the opening part before you get to, like, what was it, the Forbidden Woods, was very, very linear. You were only allowed to sail down along specific paths to get to Dragon Roost Island and then the Forest Havens, respectively. But after that it opened up, but even then, to me, the overworld was restricting, and it didn't make you want to free roam. It didn't make you feel like you were free. It felt like if you wanted to explore, you had to commit to something that you were forced into, which was this long period of waiting. And I think that for that reason, Wind Waker's overworld really isn't as open as people make it out to be, at least not in terms of how the player is going to approach it. And I really think that in general, that this overworld style really hampers free roaming gameplay, because you really have to buckle down and do a different kind of game. And especially in games like Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, there really is very little free roaming, because in Phantom Hourglass, the only free roaming you're going to do is trying to find an island that isn't on the map. And then once you've found them all, you're just going to locations. And the same is more true of Spirit Tracks, because there's nowhere to find. You're going to unlock a route by doing some other side quest or whatever, and then you're going to see where you got to go, and you're going to go there. There's no roaming or exploring whatsoever in Spirit Tracks, at least not until you're on the ground, which is sort of my point here. It's better when you're on the ground. And it being better on the ground is a concept no better displayed than in Skyward Sword, where the flying will get nothing except flying. Now, I wouldn't mind the hallway feel so much if it wasn't so monotonous. In the Wind Waker, there's really just like a very set amount of things that you can see. Like, you're basically seeing the same thing over and over again. So there's no difference in visual style. There's no difference in gameplay either. It's the same thing throughout. I didn't actually mind the sailing in the Wind Waker, like at the beginning of the game. I was actually enjoying myself quite a bit, and it only got boring for me later in, and only worsened on subsequent playthroughs. I might say that I believe that Phantom Hourglass and Phantom Hourglass anyway, has a better overworld than the Wind Waker, but that still didn't mean it improved in the monotony thing. You're doing the same thing the whole game. And besides, a lot of people are going to agree with me on that anyway. Spirit Tracks is just... And Skyward Sword might have improved the speed of travel and gave you the more fulfilling land areas to mess around in, but everything else about the sky just was non-fulfilling, and again, it was pretty much the same thing over and over again. The Levius battle is the only time you change up the pace, and that's just for one fight. Now, I didn't mind Ocarina of Time's hallways, or the Wind Waker sailing once, you know. I don't think the Zelda series, despite its, like, core tenets or whatever, I don't think that the Zelda series' core aspects need to stay that way for every single game. I don't actually mind occasional deviation as long as the core idea is the main idea for most games. But what I don't like is that it's so prevalent with this. And for both, really. The hallway thing is in spirit still displayed in these games with the transportation overworlds. And then the transportation overworlds themselves have appeared for like 4 games now. Well, the problem I have here is that I don't think that this transportation thing is a good fit for what I consider to be the core aspects of the series that make Zelda Zelda. But I don't mind it just once, but it's just too much of it. I don't get why there's so much of it. Now, arguably Nintendo needed to take a break from the the free-roaming land travel as well, but if that's the case, then they totally have. Like, we haven't seen that in a long time, except maybe in the handheld games. So I think it's really time to get some of that back. And I thought that Skyward Sword did a bit, but only with the surface gameplay, and it's still the hallway problem. But I felt like the idea of having some fulfilling land areas was sort of brought back in part. They just need to open it up more and make, that the game, instead of throwing it in the sky. That made no sense. So bottom line is, I think that they have taken a break from that if they need it, and I do think that it was the more, like, definably Zelda experience, because you were traveling along the ground, and you were exploring the areas, and you were adventuring. In a very real way, you were just checking out the landscape, and you would find stuff, and you would fight enemies and whatnot, and I think that that's a much more clearly a Zelda experience. And I also just think it's better in general because it's much more diverse. There's a lot you can do with that, where there's limitations with what you can do with the transportation stuff. Although, admittedly, they haven't really tried. And I have defined in an article in the past other overworlds that have done the transportation thing better from non-Zelda games. So anyway, how about you? I'm legitimately curious to see if this is something that people have been wanting more of. These transportation overworlds, is this something that people really want to see in more Zelda games and really disagree with me on this, that they do feel it's very much a Zelda experience? And that is what I'm very interested in finding out, and I'd really like you guys to tell me in the comments. Also tell me if you agree with me, or if you like the land overworlds better, or you just think that there should be more variety. What about the Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, and Skyward Sword's overworlds? How did you really think they were done? And, tell me in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.